Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Joining me is my co-host, CoinDesk managing editor of Global Capital Markets, Lawrence Luton. Good morning, Lawrence.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Very well. Let's have a look at Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index currently at $38,528 Bitcoin, slightly up over the past 24 hours, about 1.4%. The CoinDesk Ether price ETX index at 2796. ETH is also climbing slightly, about just over 1%, and the DFX CoinDesk DeFi index is just below that 200 level, now down about 0.3%. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. So, all right, taking a look at the markets, they have been pulling back lately, slightly up just on the Monday. But also, what really caught everyone's attention, Lawrence, is Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Of course, they had their annual Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting over the weekend, and Warren Buffett doubled down on his Bitcoin is rat poison mantra, saying that now if you told me if you own all of the Bitcoin in the world and you offered it to me for $25, I wouldn't take it because what would I do with it? I'd have to sell it back to you one way or another. It isn't going to do anything. Lawrence, what are your thoughts on that conversation?
Hey, Warren Buffett, have fun staying poor.
That's right. It just seems really out of touch.
No, I don't think it's out of touch. I think that's kind of that's the view of a lot of people in crypto. But I think they have to take into consideration that there remains still questions for most people, and I do mean most people, because most people don't own or trade crypto in general. So you still have to win over a lot of people. Remember, Warren Buffett made his money in names that you know.
You have to win out a generation that doesn't like to use apps as much. But I mean, if you were to send money to someone to, say, El Salvador, versus using whatever mechanism in the financial world you can use here to send money there, who's going to win in terms of faster processing time, and who's going to get it first? I mean, it's going to be someone using crypto.
Faster processing time, but with more volatility in the underlying asset. I mean, that might be different for stable coins. So in other words, stable coins is just this minor technology. But if we're going to talk about, there's a trade-off, right? Because there's ultimately a risk in that. Yes, it's a short amount of time and whatever, but really, it never really works that way. And so you have this risk, this price risk that doesn't exist necessarily.
We also have the Charlie Munger quote saying, "In my life, I try to avoid things that are stupid and evil and make me look bad in comparison to somebody else." And Bitcoin does all three. But to me, that just looks like a fundamental inability to understand what Bitcoin does there.
What does he care? What does he care? No, but what does he care? And why should he care? Why should he care? I mean, why are we going hard on Charlie Munger, a guy who's made more money than I'll ever, he's made, Charlie and Munger and Warren Buffett have made more money than everybody watching this show combined, probably. So I mean, we shouldn't begrudge them for having this view. They are very successful having this view. So instead, we should ask ourselves, okay, what is it they're saying that we could use? If you're an advocate for crypto, what is it that they're saying that we could either alter what models we have, or try to change the marketing pitch and whatever? Just walking around with white baseball caps.
A bygone era, gone with the wind, that they just have not updated themselves to this generation's technology.
It's working for them.
Okay.
It's working for them. Why do they need to do that? It's
fundamental
when
value.
It stops working for them, maybe they can change. But why should they bother?
Let's dive into the markets with our crypto markets guest. The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem.
There was some excitement over the weekend in the currency markets, even though you might have seen Bitcoin go just about flat in the 30s. So joining us now to discuss is Greg King, founder and CEO of investment firm Osprey Funds. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. Can we keep talking about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger?
we sure thoughts, we can.
Greg?
You had. I mean, you know what? I was going to ask you about the markets, but chime in. Chime in. What's your take?
No, I mean, the thing is that what's a US dollar? Let's say we have stacks of dollars right here. Like, what are you going to do with it, right? Ultimately, you're just going to have to, quote, sell it to somebody else. These are units of account. So they seem to have a fundamental lack of understanding with regard to what money is, right? He said the same thing about gold. You could put it in one big cube and it's kind of worthless. The world just differs from these guys, right? At the end of the day, you can't barter for everything. And so in the meantime, as you're producing value, you have to store it somewhere. People store this in checking accounts. But what are you going to do with your checking account? You're just going to use the balances in it to buy a house, to buy food, to buy groceries, whatever. And Bitcoin is just another unit of account. They can't seem to grasp. And so it's okay. I mean, we all have grandparents and great grandparents and stuff. I spent
Greg,
30 years trying to get my mom to forward an email on her iPhone. So it's okay.
But Greg, as a unit of account, I mean, like in many ways, like when I get a balance sheet, it's always in dollars. It's not in Bitcoin, right? I might see Bitcoin on it. You go look at MicroStrategies, they'll have like a big chunk of Bitcoin on it, even though that's not what their business does. But okay, that's a different discussion. I don't see their assets and liabilities done in Bitcoin. They're not denominated in Bitcoin. Most people don't have that. They're denominated in dollars. So if I'm putting it in a checking account, I don't have that price risk that I would have if I put it in Bitcoin.
Yeah, but you can use Bitcoin as the payments rails to send whatever denomination
then you could also use stablecoins to do that. Why do you need Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin's about the storing of the value, right? Not as much making of payments. Although we think that developments with the Lightning Network recently are really promising for Bitcoin and are very bullish. But I think that the store of value, it's the same again back to gold. It's just that Bitcoin's a better gold. It's digital, doesn't have some of the physical restrictions that gold has, but people's balance sheets aren't denominated in gold, and it doesn't, you can't buy your groceries with it. But at the same time, world governments and very wealthy people understand that it's a great store of value long term.
Greg, taking a look at the crypto markets, what's your assessment of the short-term outlook for crypto?
I think crypto is getting dragged down with everything else. The Fed and what's going on with rates is really dominating. I think there's a obvious tension between what they need to do in the short term to kind of cool things down by raising rates, perhaps aggressively, versus what we all see that will inevitably have to happen afterwards, which is a bunch of easing, because those rate increases are unlikely to be received well. So at the moment, I think crypto's got a much increased correlation to markets overall, and it's sort of risk-off timing right now, and we see that as being the main driver of price activity.
But what do you think is causing, though, that sort of correlation with the equity markets right now? I mean, forever we've been told that crypto is not not related. It's a non-diverse. It's a diversified asset. But yet here it is, as you said, it's risk on risk. It's a risk on asset and a risk off environment. What does it tell us about the overall market structure at the moment? Is it? Does it mean that there are more institutions that are involved in Bitcoin and thus have made it a basically risk-on asset, or what's driving all that? What's driving the correlation now?
Yeah, I do think that's the case. There are more institutions involved. It's becoming more commingled into their overall portfolios, and also it's very liquid and easy to transact on a 24/7 basis. Which makes it something that people can go to. Plus, you have embedded profits for anyone that's significantly long term, and so people have, they may want to take some of those profits off the table. But I think that the correlation aspect is still going to recede once this Fed kind of noise sorts itself out.
So in September of last year, Osprey launched a Solana fund. Over the weekend, another big news item was that the Solana network crashed because of an NFT mining bot. And there was all sorts of discussion and debate on, how decentralized Solana really is. They eventually restarted the network by going into Discord and agreeing to do so. But I wonder your thoughts on Solana.
Yeah, so Solana is a super interesting project. Obviously, I think they are making a play for speed. They're with the Serum project. This central limit order book that can sort of price anything in the world. It holds great amount of promise. But at the end of the day, we keep saying that investing in these layer one technologies is investing in emerging tech. Right. And so things are going to happen as the project gets built out. I mean, it's still to a certain extent in test form, but every time they have an issue, they fix it, move on, patch it, and learn from it. And I think that's how tech, rolls. It's just typically behind the scenes held within a corporation to where we can't necessarily see what's happening, or, upgrades are released to the public as and when. Here with networks that are backed by cryptocurrency, we've got a more open view of what's happening, and they sort of have to deal with their dirty laundry in terms of real time and out there for everybody to see. But we've got a lot of faith in Solana in the long term.
Yeah, Greg, we see here on the price chart is around 88 right now. The prices took a little bit of a dip when this outage happened, but it ultimately bounced back quickly. Usually when something that this major happens in the network, you would see the price drop precipitously. So what does that tell us about, again, kind of getting back to that whole discussion about Bitcoin and its correlation to the markets, to the equity markets? Is the fact that it didn't have this massive sell-off during this time, does it tell us that the market itself is concentrated, that the Solana market is very concentrated?
I think what it tells us is that the network is valuable, and so it's hard to replace what's already been built. And bumps along the way don't necessarily decrease the overall value. They may put some uncertainty into the equation until they're sorted out. But the network itself is what's valuable, its capabilities, its developers, and it's all the projects that are being built on it. And that, I think whenever something like this happens, the market has to digest, okay, is this a big deal or a small deal? Is it going away soon? Is it fundamental to, am I missing something fundamental with regard to the promise of this technology? And I think the market sorted through this one pretty quickly and saw, well, okay, this is a glitch, and they'll sort through it and, back to regular business.
Never a dull moment. All right, Greg, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your insights.
Thanks.
That was Osprey Funds CEO Greg King. Coming up, the latest with former presidential candidate Andrew Yang ahead of the midterm elections and New York State's crypto mining ban. That's next. Here's a live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XTX index at 38,800. Bitcoin slightly up over 2% over the past 24 hours. The CoinDesk Ether price ETX index at 2816. ETH also climbing about 1.9%. And the DFX CoinDesk DeFi index is at 200, trading pretty flat.
New York State Assembly taking action to block crypto miners from using non-renewable energy sources. The lower chamber of the Empire State, not the Garden State, that's a better place, passed a bill imposing a 2-year moratorium on new crypto mining firms that use carbon-based energy. It's now headed to the upper chamber, the Senate. Joining us now to discuss and give us more insight is John Olsen. He is the New York State lead at the Blockchain Association. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So how did we get to this point? New York has always had this kind of interesting and sometimes contentious, actually not oftentimes contentious, relationship with just crypto in general. So what happened here and how did this bill come about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a particular operation out on Seneca Lake the Greenwich Power Plant. That was a coal plant. It was purchased, it was repurposed as a gas-fired plant, and then it began to partner with an operation to mine Bitcoin a few years ago. There's been a groundswell of opposition to this plant continuing to operate. And so last year, a bill was introduced to place a 3-year moratorium on all crypto mining in New York. That bill has subsequently been amended and somewhat watered down. My thought is to actually get it over the finish line and get it passed in both houses. So now it only applies to electric generating facilities that partner with Bitcoin mining operations here in New York and draw power from carbon-based sources. And it's important to note that the legislation itself is an emissions bill, so it only impacts the air permits that are required to allow a power plant to operate in the state.
So now, are you happier with this bill than what would have happened otherwise?
No, I don't believe any kind of moratorium is good policy, especially in an emerging industry and one that's trying to find footing here in the state. The concern is that any kind of moratorium that's placed in statute can always be expanded or even extended. So a 2-year moratorium, which is where the bill is now, is kind of just a starting place, I think, for proponents. And we're very concerned that should something pass into law, that it's just step one in kind of pushing the cryptocurrency industry out of New York in terms of, the Bitcoin mining operation. But, we find that there's a general negative rhetoric around crypto and the blockchain. And I think a lot of that comes from a general misunderstanding of the technology and really the benefits that, crypto really can provide to New York residents.
The Finger Lakes have had environmental issues in the past, of course, and so as you can imagine, that there is some sort of there is quite a bit of soreness over its misuse and mismanagement. Do you think that perhaps some of the actors in this in the mining community may have overstepped if not the legal bounds, at the very least, sort of did really bad PR, if you will? In how they handled the situation, kind of made it hard for the rest of the community?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's just an industry that wants to supply good-paying jobs to folks in areas that could use them. I think there's real value in partnering with the Bitcoin mining operations to help, these plants contribute to the grid. So, in terms of their own PR battles, I can't speak to that. But I do believe that, a bill that singles out a particular industry for its energy use is not, sound policy in terms of an overall state approach.
John, why do you think crypto data centers are being targeted versus the AWSs of the world, the Facebook servers, the Google service? Why target crypto?
I think it's an easy target, right? There's a lot of misunderstanding, but there's also a general lack of knowledge. It's a very nascent industry. It's a very new industry in terms of public affairs. So, the legacy industries have a leg up in terms of advocacy and also relationships with legislators and policymakers. So that's why blockchain's here in New York. The Blockchain Association really wants to have those relationships and demonstrate the value of blockchain technology and the crypto industry. But as I said, a bill that singles out a particular industry, I think it's because there's just, there's no understanding really, and it's an easy target.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, why is New York so hostile toward crypto? You mentioned a lack of understanding, but we also have the bit license in this state, and that has created a place where in New York, crypto exchanges can operate in all 50 states except New York. So Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, has said, he would like to see the bit license gone, but it's a state issue. So what is going up in Albany that is making them so anti-crypto?
Again, I think it's a lack of education. I've been leading the efforts for the Blockchain Association for about 5 to 6 weeks now, and in generally talking with legislators, they just don't understand it. They don't get how it works. They don't understand proof of work. They don't understand that there's a whole world out there of decentralized finance and NFTs, DAOs. Like there's a lot that we need to do in terms of education. So I would encourage the state legislature to hold off on any kind of policy like this so that we can demonstrate that. And we're actually here in Albany this week, we're out in force trying to educate legislators, one, about this bill, but also about the benefits of blockchain, to the, financial inclusion pieces, underbanked communities. So, we're advocating at the $1 million staircase today, just to, show that we're here and that we want to be helpful and partner with policymakers. So, yeah, I mean, the bit license is already a challenge. There's probably a couple dozen regulated entities currently. And I would say that if we were to enact a moratorium on crypto mining, that, we're sending a very bad signal to the industry at a time when it really could go anywhere. And I'm, thankful that Mayor Adams is an advocate, because it has been helpful in, breaking through some of the barriers of education.
So what are the chances right now in the Senate for this bill, first of all? And second of all, New York was run for decades. It was basically a triumvirate. It was called the three men in the room. And that has since changed with redistricting and with basically the elimination of the Republicans, but not the total elimination, but the destruction of Republicans in the Senate. It created a sort of chaotic environment. Does that kind of thing help or hurt the chances for crypto in the future in New York?
I think we've seen quite a few champions from one side of the aisle, but I think crypto is one of the true bipartisan issues and technologies. I think it benefits everybody. And yeah, the political makeup of New York is incredibly blue, but you do see several, moderate voices. I believe the Senate leader is very measured and takes into account the entire state when it comes to policy. So, I'm encouraged that in the upper house, cooler heads will prevail, so to speak. We do have a bit of work to do, but we do also have a little more time. I believe this bill is not going to move as quickly as it did in the assembly. So, we're hopeful to have the conversations that, really open the doors to a much broader discussion about the benefits of crypto.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully lawmakers can learn and be educated on that front, or they could exit and then go into private practice and try to educate crypto firms on how to abide by the policy they just passed. It's a lucrative business. John, thanks for joining us.
I don't know what you're talking about there.
But to be sure, there are some dumb people in the Senate, so good luck. That's a different story.
All right. That was the Blockchain Association New York State lead, John Olsen. All right. Last week during Crypto Bahamas, CoinDesk had a chance to catch up with former presidential and NYC mayoral candidate Andrew Yang. He's now the chair of the Forward Party, and we asked his thoughts on the upcoming midterm elections in the United States. Have a listen.
One indeed. Well, I started the Forward Party to give Americans a choice from the two major parties. At the same time, there are so many folks in crypto that are concerned about the regulations that are getting drafted in DC not being very reasonable or sensible. So we've started an organization, Lobby 3 DAO, to help educate lawmakers and regulators about the many use cases of crypto that aren't in the headlines. And also, as you probably know, started GoldenDAO, a community to help uplift API creators and entrepreneurs in Web3. So it's been a blast working on these projects. I think that Web3 technologies can be an awesome tool to fight poverty, and I want to see them reach that potential.
Yes, we'll get into GoldenDAO, but let's talk about the Forward Party first. We've got the midterms coming up, and what do you foresee happening, shaking out in the future? We've got the Democrats. Will they lose control of the House, Senate? What are your thoughts?
I'm not breaking any news by saying that the Republicans are very, very favored to take the House for sure, and probably the Senate. I don't think that anything is going to happen that's going to change that dynamic. Frankly, it's pretty baked in. And then the question is whether that dynamic will continue to 2024, and I think a lot of that's going to be contingent on what's happening with the economy and inflation.
All right. And how are cryptocurrencies impacting the elections? And there are some candidates who are accepting campaign donations in Bitcoin, and I wonder your thoughts on that. And is it legal? I mean, we don't know who or where this crypto is coming from, so is there sufficient KYC?
As long as they say who they are, it's perfectly legal. There are a ton of campaigns that are taking Bitcoin and crypto donations, including the Forward Party. Some of our biggest donors have been in Bitcoin. So the federal rules are, they just want to know who you are, what you do for a living, and how much money you're donating. So as long as you're willing to sign and say, hey, this is me and I'm donating 10 Bitcoin, which is a pretty big donation, then it's perfectly kosher.
Are you supporting crypto candidates, fellow crypto candidates for the midterms?
I am. So one candidate I'm going to call out is Erica Rhodes, who's running for Congress in the Los Angeles area, and her opponent is Brad Sherman, who's very anti-crypto. So if you are someone who wants to see pro-crypto candidates win, check out Erica Rhodes. But there are other candidates around the country who are making a positive case. It's just not always as stark as that race because her opponent happens to be one of the most anti-crypto folks in DC.
He has said that he wants to ban cryptocurrencies. And
you got to get Brad Sherman out of there, Erica Rhodes in. Check it out. Look it up, Brad Sherman.
And so you said you've been getting big campaign donations for a Forward Party from crypto donors?
Yeah, our single biggest donation was in essentially Bitcoin. And if you think about it, the ethos of the crypto community, where does it fall politically? I'm going to suggest it's certainly not Democrat or Republican. It's kind of apolitical, libertarian, independent. And a lot of those folks, including a lot of the folks I've talked to here in the last number of hours, are really excited about having some kind of alternative or reorientation of our political system. It's very analogous to what's happening with crypto in the traditional financial system. You have the traditional political system with only two parties that don't really represent the viewpoints of most of the people here in this community or really around the country.
All right. So let's talk a bit about, actually, there's a lot of macro uncertainty right now with the war in Ukraine, with inflation. I wonder your thoughts and how that will impact the midterms.
Well, it's one of the reasons why this cycle is going to be so punishing for Democrats is that if you show up to the gas station and gas is more than $4 a gallon, that hits you every single time when you go to the grocery store and buy food for your families. And so inflation is at multi-decade highs, and American consumers are seeing it every day, and I think that's going to unfortunately, it's going to play out in the midterms in terms of their response to the people who are currently in power.
How would your foreign policy be if you were to think about it? The relationship between China and Russia and the United States. How would from a U.S. perspective, how would you not lose that relationship with China out to Russia?
I'm someone who's very intent on what's happening in Ukraine. It's really unconscionable what Putin's done. It does heighten, in my view, the need to try and build more open lines of communication between the U.S. and China to avoid a new Cold War or worse, and that dynamic is building up. And if you rewind a number of weeks or months ago, people would not have thought that Russia would invade Ukraine. They would say, that's just a bridge too far, they're not going to do it, and then here we are. We're at a point in human history now where things that you wouldn't have thought were possible are on the table, and so you have to reinvest in trying to make sure that massive powers like the U.S. and China at least can talk to each other enough to avoid that kind of global issue from reaching a point that some of us would have thought was just unimaginable.
You talked about the UBI a lot in your previous campaigning. I wonder how crypto could fit in with that concept.
What's fun, Christine, is that when I was running for president, the first community that embraced me was the crypto community. I spoke at Consensus in
I remember that. I was watching it. Yeah,
there we go. It was consensus in 2018, 19, blockchain for good, and people just got it. And I think it's because the folks in the crypto world are so optimistic and future oriented, and they also know the impact that technology is going to have on a lot of our systems. And so when you said something like, hey, we should have UBI, there were many people here who were like, yeah, that makes sense, even before it made sense to a lot of other people. And so I'm working on anti-poverty initiatives in Web3, which, by the way, will have the positive impact of helping improve the regulatory and political and media environment in DC, because when I talk to lawmakers, or my team talks to lawmakers, their single biggest question is, okay, like, point me to the community that is using these technologies to improve their lives, and it's not about speculation, it's not about these other things. And so if we can produce those real life examples, then it's going to be good for the people, it's going to be good for crypto because more people will actually understand and be making use of it, and then also it will help us politically.
All right. You have been honing in on the API community. You've created GoldenDAO. Maybe just walk us through what GoldenDAO is all about.
Well, it's a really tough time for a lot of Asian Americans right now. I mean, we're seeing victims of violence in New York City, where I live. And so I wanted to do something positive that enables people to take action, because I'm a man of action, and I thought, well, if you see terrible things happening, you want to do something about it. So GoldenDAO is a community where we can elevate and activate Asian American creators, entrepreneurs, builders, and activists to make a positive difference in our communities. So very exciting. We're going to have an event in June at NFT NYC. Just walking this floor, someone just yelled GoldenDAO at me, which I really appreciated. So it's a very wholesome, positive community. And the treasury is about to get distributed, so people can vote on where some of the money is going to be dedicated.
Can anyone just join?
Well, the Discord is open,
okay.
But in order to be like a voting member, you have to buy an NFT that will then allow you into this sort of more select group.
And why do you think a DAO was the way to go in amassing this community together versus just a regular nonprofit or campaign?
Well, I have started and run a nonprofit in the past, and what happens with a nonprofit is that you do certain work and you have a team, and it's great, and then you're trying to communicate to people about the work that you're doing. And I thought, given that we're in 2022 and that there are these incredible tools available, instead of having a decentralized autonomous organization where people can not just, for example, donate time and energy and resources, but they can also say, hey, this is where it should go. It just instinctively seemed like a more ground up, powerful approach than having the usual dynamic where there's like the head of the nonprofit and they have a dinner and they say, here's all the good stuff we did. It's like, why not just ask the people what they want to do?
What other ways do you think that blockchain technology or cryptocurrencies can be incorporated in the elections or in the campaign system?
Well, I would love to see voting by mobile phone.
Yeah.
I think that would transform American politics for the
difficult.
better. It's getting closer. I mean, I was talking to a number of technologists and investors who said, look, it's actually already being used for American military stationed abroad to be able to vote in a timely way, because before this they were like mailing things and sometimes they didn't get there time to get counted, and so I think that if we can continue to make progress on it, it's very real, and then that would improve American politics. My vision is that we get to a point where instead of holding our leaders accountable every 2 or 4 or 6 years, that we can actually provide our viewpoint on an issue in real time, have liquid democracy where different people are empowered to vote on behalf of different groups on different issues. Because the fact is, American democracy right now is struggling with a lack of accountability and representation. In 90% of the congressional races, as an example, it's either going to be a Democrat or Republican, and there's no real competition in the general because they gerrymandered the districts. So in that system, people get more and more frustrated.
Right.
The way to alleviate that is to use some of these tools in a way that can demonstrate that democracy is actually able to evolve and advance.
All right, that was former presidential and NYC mayoral candidate and chair of the Forward Party, Andrew Yang. Coming up, checking in with NBA champion, actor, and entrepreneur Rick Fox in the Bahamas. Hi, I'm Christine Lee.
Zach Seward.
I'm Michael Casey.
I'm Christy Harkin.
I'm Isaiah Jackson.
I'm Serena Lynn.
Hey, this is Will Foxley.
I'm Teresa Santos.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Lewitton.
Hi, I'm Dorian Wayne.
I'm Nicolai Day.
Hi, I'm Kevin Worth.
I'm Jordan Muthra.
Hi, I'm Brad Cow.
I'm Pete Paschal.
Hi, I'm Jen Sanasi. You're watching.
And you're watching.
And you're watching CoinDesk TV.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
Three-time NBA champion, actor, dancer, and gamer Rick Fox is now turning his sights to crypto. Earlier, we caught up with the Bahamian tourism and investment ambassador on what ignited his interest in crypto. Check it out.
So a journey of evolution for me personally in my life. Sports, media, gaming, and entertainment is something that I've had a foundation in for a long time, many years. But in terms of technology and shifting and evolution in general, crypto stepped into my life through gaming at a time when I was fighting for the evolution of games. And in the case of my son, who I've watched really over the course of his career purchase a lot of digital items and not own them. So that was frustrating for him and frustrating for me because it was my money. Are
you a gamer?
I am.
Oh, great.
Heavily.
How serious?
Except for right now, daily.
Oh, wow.
I'm a DayZ player, so.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I'm out in the, but I also, with high def, I have an opportunity to actually create games that have an opportunity to provide game users the chance to own their digital items. So that's the fascination.
How do you keep playing?
Well, I don't know if you've seen, DayZ's kind of a survival game.
Okay.
So I build bases and I defend I kill people in games. So.
And you mentioned your son's into gaming, and how do you see crypto changing the business model for gaming?
Well, I think gaming in general has the ability, I think, to be a impetus for digital goods and items being something that I think in Web3 you have users wanting to not only express themselves through the playing of games, the content creation around games, but also now the ownership of the digital items that they buy in the games. And so I'm a huge proponent of users and people that love games having the opportunity to own their items. And so the games that we make at high def, that's a huge part of the game.
So formerly, you were also the CEO of Echo Fox, and this is kind of a return to the gaming world. So I guess what kind of lessons learned did you have from Echo Fox that you're bringing with you here?
Yeah, esports in general has grown in its awareness across the landscape. In that case, it was a competitive background for myself as an NBA player that excited me in the esports community. The opportunity for a gamer to have a skill set, be a masterful person at that skill set, play that game and actually be compensated for it. What transpired over the 5 years that I was in esports was I developed an understanding of content creation around gaming, games themselves, how they're created and made, the monetization of that. And here we are right now, currently, I would say, in the creator economy, where so much content is created in the world in general, but through video gaming. But those individuals that are creating the content really are trying to find a way to own the IP, their creations, own the mastery of that, and then keep the IP and the authenticity of that is something that's not only theirs, but as a purchaser or consumer of those goods, the trust between the content creator and the consumer is there. And that's what blockchain and crypto is doing, right? It's actually creating the authenticity and the assurance that the transaction is there, it's real, and it can be consumed with a trust and faith around it.
Okay. What interests me is, again, you said your son is into it, you got into it through gaming. Do you see this as the door for many folks in mass adoption in crypto?
Yeah, one of the doors.
Yeah.
It's one of the doors. I mean, if you look at some of the individuals that are leading in the space of blockchain and crypto, they believe that, right? They believe, gaming through blockchain is going to be a way to cement and continue to grow the adoption and the education around crypto and blockchain. I believe that. That's what I'm moving towards myself personally with our game company. And so in that regard, when you look at all the different utilities that come with blockchain and crypto, the use cases are rampant, and they'll start to take shape. Gaming is just one of them.
And so in terms of gaming, what are you interested in specifically? NFTs, play-to-earn games? Okay, so
the game community at large is super sensitive currently. So knowing that, play to earn and in some cases, not globally, but in some cases, for case in point, the community of the United States, when you talk to a gamer in the United States, the idea of play to earn or the idea of digital monetization is just another way for the consumer to be taxed, right, in their minds, right? So we don't want in any way find ourselves with an uneducated audience that is a gamer. I think my mission is, as I speak about these topics around blockchain gaming, NFTs, digital items, that there's I think an understanding that it's an empowering tool for a creative. It's an empowering tool for a gamer to find their way through their own creation of their own IP, their own games if they want, right?
Is there a particular blockchain you're interested in?
Is there a particular? I would say right now I'm educating myself on Solana here on a deep dive.
There's a Solana hacker house.
Yes, there is one right behind us.
Bracelet.
You caught me. So I'm having conversations there. FTX is a huge partnership of mine, and so I'm learning about the exchange of it all. And growing my general network around this industry at large to continue to be a proponent for the evolution of where we're all going together, because we're a community that believes the value of this is here to stay.
Well, when did you get into it? What year?
So when I started my company, High Def, with my partners in 2019, August of 2019. Now, I've known about blockchain and crypto going back longer than that, but when I got into it personally, anchoring some of my initiatives around the companies that I have, being at large, focused on the evolution of blockchain being something that could be a utility to implement and power companies. I would say that's where I took the deeper rooted stance in it as a way forward. So 2.5 years. Okay.
And in that time, we've seen the Staples Center, your
Crypto.com,
turn into Crypto.com. Does that blow your mind?
What blows my mind is watching FTX.
So
It blows my mind watching FTX do, the stadium in Miami, they sponsored my former teammate Shaq's Funhouse. The aggressive nature of the adoption and the inclusion of this community into traditional sports mirrors a lot of what I saw happen in esports, in the sense that traditional sports teams crossed over into gaming in esports, and now I'm watching traditional sports also find the utility and the nature of blockchain and crypto as a way to adopt naming rights, you name it, right?
So as you see sports athletes who are very inspired by you and your path, what kind of advice would you give them if they were interested in crypto and they want to get started, or any artists who want to get into NFTs and the metaverse?
Beyond getting paid in crypto, which a lot of them are starting to obviously vocalize their willingness to have that be their form of payment. I would say educate yourself. Always start with adopting a foundation of knowledge and a comfort level. I think in general, what we're doing with these conferences, like Crypto Bahamas, is continuing to grow a comfort level around change, which is not the easiest thing for people to make. But when change is for the good and for the better,
or put it another way, if you were to give yourself advice, back then when you were a winning champion, what would you say to yourself?
Be first.
Okay.
By that I mean adopt sooner than later. Be first. Evolve.
Okay.
Grow with the community that is here today. Now, a lot of the hard work has been done already by this community that for example, would be at this convention, at this conference, because they've seen it years ago, right? They're the ones making it happen, right? So education is key. The sooner you can educate yourself, the sooner you can make choices and take steps to be a part of it and to adopt and take some of your own creative IP ideas and implement them and power them through the technology that is here in place.
Yeah, I see that in your path because you were so willing to make changes, to adapt to things.
Yeah, that's to me. I think if you don't evolve, then you're stagnant, right? And in the case of two companies I have, High Def, and the other one I'll be speaking on, which is Partana. Partana is using blockchain around NFTs and carbon credits.
Yeah, you're doing a panel on sustainability. Yes. What's that all about?
So it's about the similar to blockchain in the crypto markets. Carbon credits are on the way as well too. Sustainable conversations around how do we use these two communities to come together to service our world in a better way. Obviously, sustainability and climate change is a huge topic in the world. How does blockchain play a role in that?
Are you concerned with Bitcoin's carbon footprint?
Look, anything that's evolving and has been introduced is finding its way. So what I want to vocalize to the community out there in the world is the people that are making these changes and growing our utility and our growth as a sustainable utility. Is that I guarantee those people, whether it's Bitcoin's energy use, they're looking for alternative proof of stake. Yes, exactly. Proof of stake is on its way, right? So finding those energy sources or the reduction of the use of certain energy sources to get to still the results that we are searching for and using. We're going to get there. It's only it's only been a few years. So let's just keep having the conversation and looking for the solutions.
That was three-time NBA champion, actor, entrepreneur, and Bahamian ambassador for tourism and investment, Rick Fox. All right, let's check in with Crypto Twitter for our tweet of the day. This one from the Central African Republic President, Faustin Archange Touadéra, saying, understanding the math underpinning the Nakamoto consensus is fundamental in acknowledging the power of Bitcoin as universal money. Then he links to a paper exploring Satoshi Nakamoto's solution to the double spend problem in digital assets. Very interesting to see another nation adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. Lawrence, have yourself a good day.
Thank you.
All right. I'm your host, Christine Lee. In the meantime, check out The Hash at noon Eastern and All About Bitcoin at 3. You're watching CoinDesk TV.